Hey friends, and welcome back to another episode of Heart and Health Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Welch, and I'm so glad that you are here. First of all, just a quick heads up, there is not something wrong with the recording here. This episode is going to be audio only, so I recorded it on a day when I was not feeling my best, battling a cold, and I wanted to show up with honesty and care, even if I'm not on camera. And sometimes self-care means choosing that enough is okay, and that is better than being perfect. So that is what we are practicing here today. And just to add to that excitement, there's a dog barking outside and my cat is yowling in the background. So hopefully all of that won't be too distracting. But if you are new here, I just want you to know that I'm very happy that you are here. Today we're going to be talking about that redefinition of self-care that we've been covering for the last several weeks. The first week we talked about just self-care in general, how it's not something special and unique, but something that should be incorporated into your regular routine. And then the last 3 weeks, we broke it down according to the biopsychosocial spiritual framework. So we covered the biological or physical aspects of self-care, the psychological aspects. Last week, we talked about the social aspects of self-care. And so, of course, today, you may have figured out, we're going to talk about the spiritual domain of self-care. And I want to remind everybody, I know I've said this before, but just in case you're new, this is not specific to religious practice. The spiritual domain is a much broader sense of purpose that we focus on, that kind of connection to the world and your greater purpose and meaning in life, and having that hopefulness that even when things are challenging, it's going to get better, especially when life feels really heavy. We have that hopefulness to continue. So that's what we're focusing on with the spiritual domain today. I want to give you a couple of quick reminders before we dive in. First of all, I want you to check the show notes or the description down at the bottom of wherever you're listening today for a couple of things. First is my top 3 meditation app recommendations. Meditation mindfulness is something that we'll be talking about today. And there are lots of apps out there. Some of them are free, some of them charge you to use them. And I've created a short list of 3 that I've used myself in the past and have found helpful. I think most of them are, at least to some extent, and then some of them have an option to increase with a paid subscription. But just know that you are able to use, I think, all 3 of them in a free variation at the beginning. But these 3 apps have helped me find peace when there's tough season, or if I'm having a difficult day and I just need to reset, even if it's a brief 5 minutes or less. These apps have really helped me to kind of have some guidance in how to do that, so I'm not just sitting there staring or having my mind wander all over the place. The second thing that I want to tell you about is brand new, and this is a wellness blind spot quiz that I've created. If you have been following along and you still feel stuck and just wondering, like, I'm spinning my wheels here, why can't I get to wellness the way I want to? It's possible that the domain you're neglecting isn't the one that you thought. And so this blind spot quiz is designed to help you in 3 minutes or less be able to identify which domain of the biopsychosocial spiritual wellness framework you are missing and maybe unintentionally neglecting. So check that out. Also, please remember to give this show a kind rating and share the show with somebody, even if it's just one person, if you find that it has been helping. That is a great way to help a brand new podcast get the word out and to spread. A lot of times that word of mouth helpfulness is much better than even what I can do in trying to spread the word on my own social media. Speaking of social media, while I have not yet started posting regularly on Instagram, I've done some on TikTok, but I haven't done a lot on Instagram yet. I am planning to get that going, and so it's going to be a good place to get some regular updates and some encouragement on a daily basis. I'm going to be sharing more wellness tips and tools for you there. So if you want to give me a follow, it's at Heart and Health Wellness on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And I think that's it for now. So if you want to connect with me, Instagram is going to be the place where I'm putting most of my energy, and I plan on doing that starting next week. So check that out. Okay, so let's go ahead and just talk about what is spiritual self-care. Again, I want you to really think about that spiritual component as something much larger beyond religion. Of course, religion can be included in this domain, but it's not the only thing, right? So spiritual self-care is how we stay grounded and having meaning in life. So it's the process of reconnecting with a sense of peace, kind of having that wonder and excitement for life, having a sense of purpose, or transcendence, whatever that looks like for you. And I think it's important to recognize that this looks different for everyone. It's not a one size fits all situation. So really figure out, do some reflecting. What does it mean for me to practice spirituality? And how does that show up in my life? So this is different from the emotional wellness component or the psychological component, because the psychological piece really focuses on our thoughts and our feelings, and those emotions change hour by hour, right? Sometimes they last a little longer than others, but there's a lot of fluctuation that happens within that domain. Whereas spiritual care is really something that's going to anchor us long term, and it helps us to have something to really like ground us and feel confident in, even when life feels emotionally tumultuous. So when we're riding those emotional waves, that spiritual component is really what helps us continue on and have that hopefulness that there's purpose and meaning despite those challenges that we are facing right now. So for me personally, my Christian faith is a foundation. It is something that gives me meaning and direction, guidance when I'm trying to make decisions. But even within that, those spiritual care shifts. So for example, sometimes prayer is really helpful to me, but sometimes it's just sitting with scripture, or even meditating on a specific scripture when I don't have the words for prayer, or just noticing the beauty around me when I feel just drained or numb and I don't feel like there's a lot that I can give. Just sitting and noticing can be really helpful to me. Sometimes when people ask me about what was the moment where you felt just the most humbled in life? And there's several moments that I can think of, but usually it's when I'm in nature and I'm noticing what I would consider God's creation, right? And just realizing how small I am in this gigantic world, in this universe, and how, all these things in my life might feel really, really big in the moment. But in the grand scheme of things and in the world, it's just tiny. It's a blink of an eye. And I am just one small piece of this magnificent, larger system that's taking place, right? One of the best times that this happened was when I was in Alaska. My family took an Alaskan cruise for my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. And we went up into where the glaciers are. And if you haven't done that yet, I definitely recommend it. It's absolutely beautiful. But these glaciers are massive, and you don't realize how massive they are until you've pulled that boat up and you're just looking up going, oh my goodness, I'm so tiny. And they're bright blue, like Jolly Rancher blue. And then sometimes they're calving, which means they're like falling off, right? And they fall into the water and the boom, it's like thunder. I mean, it's just magnificent. And that is one of those moments where I just felt so tiny and insignificant in a good way, if that makes sense. I've also experienced this when I've been at Niagara Falls or just at a beautiful beach here in Florida, and there's not too many crowds and you're just noticing how beautiful it is, but especially that time in Alaska. Highly recommend that. Also, I want to point out that all of those moments that I've had, like that really big sense of awe and being humbled by how small I am, those have always happened when I'm in nature. So if this spiritual domain is one where you feel really disconnected or just kind of lost and don't know where to start, I would encourage you to get out in nature, even if that means being outside in your yard, taking your shoes off and just letting your feet like touch the grass and be connected with nature. And I'm not trying to get too woo-woo here, but I do think there's something to be said about how we were created to be connected with nature, and our current society has done a really good job of separating us from that. Everything from shoes, being indoors all the time, not getting to hear nature sounds like birds and just hearing AC and things like that in the background. It's really separated us from nature. So if the spiritual component is something that you're struggling with, I would encourage you to go get into nature. Okay, so now let's talk about when you are struggling. What is it that's going to provide you with that source of hope and security? For me, it's my faith. And so I do want to talk about one piece of my faith that might be different from what a lot of people might say, especially those who are in the Christian community. A lot of times I hear people talking about, even if they're not part of the Christian community, they'll say something like, everything happens for a reason. And I understand why people say that. And they feel like it gives them a sense of security, knowing that whatever they're going through is happening for a reason. I like to give a subtle shift to that understanding. So I like to acknowledge that there is suffering and that there's a complexity to suffering. And sometimes I worry that the saying everything happens for a reason is somewhat dismissive of suffering. And I think it's probably been my role as a therapist and the many things that I have heard about, the tragedies and the trauma that I've heard about. I just don't believe that some of those things happened by design or for a reason. However, I do believe that all things can be used for a purpose and for good. And I would say I believe that God can use even the worst parts of life for his glory and turn it into something worthwhile and meaningful and have purpose. But even if you're not practicing from the Christian faith and that's not part of it, I would encourage you to recognize how even some of those really difficult pieces of life can be used as experience and wisdom and give you an opportunity to help others who may have been in similar experiences and situations. And you wouldn't be able to do that if you hadn't been through those things. So it's a subtle shift, but if you hear me say that I don't believe that all things happen for a reason, that's why. I believe some things are just absolutely awful, not for a reason. However, I do believe that even those things can be used for good and for a purpose. So, for an example, for a quick personal story, there's been seasons in my life where I've felt totally overwhelmed and unseen, and like I had to show up and be this positive version of myself, or as a therapist had to show up and be available to others, where in my personal life I was really struggling and going through a lot that only a few people really knew about. But through that season in journaling, in time with God, in time with prayer, and just pausing to like really be in his presence, whether that was in worship or just in my room in quiet time by myself, I found peace to get through those moments. I knew that what I was going through could be used, even if I didn't disclose to the people I was working with in my therapy office what I was going through. I had a unique perspective and experience that I was able to have greater empathy, greater compassion, greater connection to what they were going through because we had those similarities, right? So I really believe that God has an ability to redeem what we didn't ask for, what we weren't hoping for in life, what we didn't see coming, and that he can use what was once really painful to be a path for someone else's healing. And I think that's a really beautiful way of reframing and taking that suffering, acknowledging that suffering, and giving it a sense of purpose and meaning without dismissing how difficult it really was. And I hope that's making sense for you. I want to share a verse for you that you can use to lean on or use as a mantra if you're experiencing one of those situations now or in the future. Romans 8:28 in the New Living Translation states, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." It reminds us that God works all things together for good. Not that all things are good, but that they can become something good. And so it's just a good verse to be able to go back to if you're in one of those times. So it's just a good reminder that, even if it doesn't happen for a reason, it can be used for good and for purpose. Okay, so let's shift into talking about gratitude and mindfulness as spiritual practices that you can use. So I want to emphasize that these are accessible for anyone, even if you're really busy, even if you've been trying to grow and you've been distracted by other things and you feel like you're spinning wheels, and if you're just trying to hit the reset button. These are simple tools that you can use. Gratitude and mindfulness do not take a lot of time, and they fit right in with that idea that self-care is not something that you have to do that's special or big or extraordinary. It doesn't have to be the cruise to Alaska. It can be these simple moments in everyday life. So for gratitude, I want you to just focus on noting one thing that you're grateful for each morning before you even pick up your phone. Now, I know that's hard because a lot of us pick up our phone immediately, maybe because it's where our alarm is, or it's just habit, whatever it might be. But before you start going through your phone, I want you to focus on just one thing that you are grateful for each and every morning. And then I would also encourage you to take it one step further. So if you keep a notepad by your bed, I want you to write down what that one thing is. There's something about writing things down. That's why I encourage journaling. That takes it out of your head and puts it onto paper that makes it tangible. So keep that notepad and a pen right next to your bed so you wake up in the morning and you can immediately do this. If you're opposed to killing trees and using paper, or you don't have a place to set that next to your bed, whatever excuse you come up with, that's fine. You can use the Notes app. But before you do all the other things, all the other apps and distractions and things on your phone, just do this one little piece of gratitude to start your day. When it comes to mindfulness, I want you to start really small. Okay. Mindfulness could be something that you work up to 30 minutes or an hour or whatever. That would be great. But it is totally okay and acceptable and helpful to start with a 2-minute timer. So set the timer on your phone. Close your eyes and just focus on your breathing. When you notice that your mind is wandering, because it will, because you're human and that's what it does. If you start thinking about what are you going to pack for lunch that day, or, what your coworker said that's driving you nuts, I want you to just notice that's happening and gently bring it back. What does that actually mean? That means saying, Melissa, your brain is going off this way. Come back to your breath. Breathing in, I'm holding it, I'm breathing out, and just focusing on your breath. But when you do that, don't get frustrated with yourself. Don't get agitated. Just gently bring it back without any kind of judgment and allow yourself to just continue that. So imagine breathing in with peace and exhaling the noise. When I say the noise, I'm talking about all of the thoughts and the clutter in your brain that's making you anxious, right? Or could make you anxious if you really focused on it. So when you're doing this, 2 minutes, close your eyes, focus on your breathing, redirect yourself kindly, focus on picturing yourself breathing in the peace and exhaling noise. Also, I'm going to add in here, if you are someone who struggles with pain or chronic pain, I know for me, I have this knot in my shoulder that's always difficult to get rid of, and it'll go away for some time, but it inevitably always comes back. Sometimes if that's really bothering me, I'll imagine myself breathing into that place of pain and then breathing out the discomfort, and that can really help. So when I talk about imagine breathing in peace and exhaling noise, you can focus on your heart or your mind. But if you have some kind of physical pain, sometimes it helps to focus on breathing into that spot in your body and then breathing out the pain. Okay, so that's a quick tip for mindfulness. Either way, if you're practicing gratitude or mindfulness or both, it's good to start with it in the morning, good to make it a priority, and remember it's okay to keep it nice and short and simple, and that is still progress moving forward. So I'm going to talk to a few of you that might be listening. First of all, for those of you who are really, really busy, I want to encourage you, when you are in the midst of chaos, you feel like life is just all over the place, you can focus on anchoring your soul by doing a 1-minute breath prayer or a walk outside where you notice something beautiful. This does not have to take a lot of time. You can do 1 minute of this. I encourage you to do 2-minute mindfulness. If you start with 1 minute, that is okay. I don't want you to avoid starting your wellness journey or attempting to improve your wellness because you're busy. You can do it in a minute or less. That could be while you're driving. It could be whatever. Keep it simple and short and sweet. For those of you who are really trying to grow in your wellness, you want to get better, but you feel like you're kind of spinning your wheels and feeling stuck, I want you to try pairing your to-do list this week with a centering practice. So I know that you're really focused on getting everything done, but before you even start your hardest task, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what is it that matters most today? And if you can, connect that to why that matters today. So what is the value that's connected to that? And those values are a big part of the spirituality domain. So these are my to-dos for today. This is what I want to get done. I'm going to feel accomplished, like I've achieved something. This is my biggest, hardest task. Before I dive into it, I'm going to ask myself, why does this matter? Is it because I want to do a good job at work? Is it because I want to take care of my family? Is it because I want to prove that I can do this hard thing? Whatever it might be, talk to yourself. Why does it matter? What is it about it that matters most today? And connect it to that value that you're holding. For those of you who are trying to hit the reset button, you've had wellness before where you felt like things were going really well, but lately things have just been off, and now you're trying to hit that reset button. I want to encourage you to let your quiet moments become sacred. I want you to find a way to make it ritualistic, okay? So whether that's lighting a candle or putting on some music that helps you feel restored and calm, or reading a piece of scripture like one psalm and letting that just be enough. Like today, I'm showing up even though I'm not feeling great, and I'm okay with it being enough. I want you to find a way to reset, make it some kind of this ritualistic special thing, and let that be enough. It doesn't have to be big and fancy. You can keep it simple. Okay, but do something that makes it fun. All right. And so I want to talk real quick. What does this look like on a daily basis, right? This doesn't have to be something that happens every now and then. It's something that I want you to be able to incorporate regularly on a daily basis. So when you know your schedule pretty well, if you're feeling chaotic, you may not be connected with this right now and you can work on that part. But if you have a daily rhythm and you know what works really well for you, you're going to know which time of day is best. So whether that's morning or midday or evening, just figure out what works best for you and making it happen with your schedule. Okay. So if you're in the morning, maybe it's that piece of gratitude that you're going to do before you're on your phone, whether you write it down or you put it in your note app. That might be a really good way to just start the day. If it's a midday break, for me, I often find that, especially on really busy or difficult days at work, that taking some time at lunch to just step outside, get some fresh air and some sunshine, especially right now before it's too hot outside, to just take a 2-minute breath and prayer and to just go outside, maybe walk a little bit to really ground myself, to bring myself back and center myself. And then I can go back inside and start fresh. And sometimes I combine that with a snack if you want to combine that physical domain too. And then for those of you who are really good at having time for yourself in the evening, reflect on the one thing that gave you hope or reminded you of goodness in the world and just spend some time kind of meditating on that or doing some mindfulness with that. Now, if you are feeling overwhelmed by all of this, I want you to start small and just focus on one of these pieces, one time of day that you can do this. And I want you to remember that if you're not incorporating this all, or if you're not incorporating any of it every single day, you're not failing if it's imperfect. It is okay. You are practicing being present with yourself and taking care of yourself and incorporating this self-care on a regular basis. And it is okay that it is imperfect. We really need to work on reframing wellness rather than something that is achieved as an end goal but rather something that we're working on a regular basis and incorporating to the best of our ability in an ongoing journey. Okay. Now, if you are more advanced and you're like, well, I'm already doing that, Melissa. I've already got that gratitude practice down, or I'm already doing meditation every day. Good for you. I would encourage you to amp it up just a tiny bit, whether you make that practice a little bit longer or you add one of these other things to it. So if you're a real go-getter and you're making this happen, maybe you're doing something in the morning, midday, and evening. That would be fantastic. That would be the ideal world, right? So if you're not there yet, don't beat yourself up. If you are there and you're bored with it and you need to increase it, don't be afraid to amp it up a bit, take it up another notch, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. I've already talked way more than I thought I was going to, and I don't know if you can hear it, but my voice is getting scratchy and tired, so we're going to wrap it up. If you have followed all 4 episodes of the biopsychosocial spiritual wellness framework and the self-care episodes that we've talked about for the last several weeks, if you still feel like something is off, I want you to go take that wellness blind spot quiz. It's in the show notes. I designed it so that it's going to be quick and easy for you to do. It's not a PDF, but it's like a PDF. I made it on Canva and you can access the link so you can see it. If you want to print it out, you totally can, but it's also okay to just look at it and jot down your answers on a piece of scratch paper. So whatever you need to do, I made that nice and simple and accessible for you, and it shouldn't take you more than a few minutes to complete it. So do that. It's going to help you figure out where you need to focus your attention and what your next step is and how to get going. I truly believe that the spiritual care can help you feel renewed even when everything else feels really difficult. So if you feel like you're lacking in this area, I would encourage you to really try and give it some attention this week. Couple reminders: rate the show if you feel like it's been helpful. Positive reviews are very appreciated. Share it with someone who might need a little peace this week. If you thought of somebody while you were listening to this, send them the link for it or just tell a friend about it. And go follow me on Instagram at Heart and Health Wellness. There's nothing there yet. It's not super exciting, but I'm going to be posting regularly on there soon. And so I don't want you to miss out on that. It is coming along soon. Got some things saved in the drafts. I just need to start posting there, but it's going to be a good place to get wellness tips and tricks and keep up with updates of other exciting things that I've going on. Okay. And that is all for today. Until next time, I want to encourage you to take care of yourself, take some deep breaths when you need to, and be well, and know that I'm doing this journey with you.